Hi, welcome to the Reclamation Project podcast. We are so glad that you are here, that you are listening, and hopefully that you are a part of the conversation. Today we are extending our talk and discussion on marriage and relationships. And again, for those of you who might not have heard the last podcast, really when we talk about marriage, we're not just talking about marriage, we're talking about all relationships that we have. So when we use the term marriage, wife or spouse, you can kind of interject and interchange that name for whatever relationship you might be in that could be affected by what we're talking about. So it might be a job, it might be a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a family member, a coworker, a spouse, a partner, whoever. It can take on many forms. So feel free to interchange whatever term you need to there, but know that the principle that we're talking about is transferable to hopefully what you're going through. So don't just check out here if you're not married. Know that this is hopefully information that you can take and use in whatever relationship that you find yourself in. So today we're talking about marriage, and last time we talked about communication, and this time we're going to extend that and talk about marriage and really what it means to carry baggage into a marriage or into a relationship. One of my favorite, and I've said this before, is one of my favorite things in the world when I was growing up was chick flicks. And I forgot to mention one show that I absolutely love. Well, I have two shows that I absolutely love, but one show that I absolutely love is How I Met Your Mother. The second one's The Office, and I think you can watch both back to back and binge watch for the rest of your life, both of those shows, and not get bored. But How I Met Your Mother, watched that from the first episode all the way through to the end while it was on TV. And I continue to binge watch it. But in one particular episode, Ted Mosby, the main character, who's single, he is dating around and he meets this girl, and he sees within all the other people around him baggage and people bringing baggage into relationships, and he feels like he has no baggage. But then quickly understands that his previous experiences were baggage for her, and that baggage becomes evident and literal as he sees baggage next to him as they're dating, and he realizes that she has no baggage. And then once he introduces that baggage to the relationship and talks about it, she decides to stay with him, and he's uber excited about that. And then after that happens, and at the end of the show, he realizes that she has baggage. She's living on her brother's couch. She's been had credit problems, and she's gone through a couple different things, and her baggage is way bigger than his. And that's sometimes how it happens when you go into relationships. You carry past experiences, you carry baggage, and that's really what we want to talk about today. Because for some people, their baggage is really small. To put it in terms, I guess like a clutch purse. Some people have a clutch purse worth of baggage, and then some people have a gigantic military style grade trunk full or trunks full of baggage that they bring into a relationship. Everyone's baggage is unique and different, but really everyone has baggage that they bring into a relationship, and it's how we work through that baggage that really matters.
And that's a great point, because the truth is we all do bring baggage in. And I think what's funny about that show is I don't know that anyone in the courtship of a relationship ever focused on the baggage. There's an old saying that opposites attract, and then after they're married, opposites attack, and I think that's true. So I choose not to look at baggage when I'm in love, and I you get married later, and that baggage is now red flags. Well, not my question in speaking to people, like, were they not red flags when you were dating? Well, I didn't really see them. Well, they were bright, and they were waving.
Your infatuation kind of
yes.
glares past it.
Yeah. And so, and again, as we all know, you can act one way in your dating relationship. When you move in and you're just trudging the journey together, your baggage becomes just so visual. The thought is, well, things will be better when we're married. I'll tell you what, marriage only, yeah, you're even laughing because you know that's true, and maybe you said that. But the truth is, marriage doesn't fix anything. Marriage only amplifies everything. So, in good premarital counseling is what I do now. Apparently, I didn't do when I did Jeremy and Katie's. We do a baggage inventory, because I think one of the things is, if I know my spouse's baggage going in and she knows mine, then I'm more apt to meet those needs that she's looking for. I'm more apt to stay away from those trigger points, and hopefully her the same. And so I always say this lack of identification of baggages just lies in wait, ready to shape your marriage without it's like your marriage becomes a host for this invader that comes in and changes your marriage. Let me give you an example. I met with a young lady not too long ago, recently, and we talked about the contradiction in her life. She's struggling. She's on her at the end of her second marriage, already anticipating a third one. And when we started to identify some of her baggage, she said she wasn't sure she had baggage. She just knew all the guys she married had baggage, which I gave her credit for how to survive in delusion, because she brings stuff too. So she said two different things that didn't make sense, and I had to bring those out. She said, I really don't like men. I need to keep them at a distance. They're nothing but trouble. And later in the conversations, we were talking about her youth. She said, I construct my life just to please men. I like men's attention, and I try to please them. So when I brought out you just said two opposites here. You don't like men; they're nothing but trouble. Yet you seek to please men. Here's what happens with baggage. Baggage defines you, and the term is arrested development, which means chronologically that this young lady is a certain age, and physiologically she looks like her age would suggest, but deep down inside, she's a little girl. And that's the baggage she brings in. So we started to work through that. And why do you need men's approval if you hate them? I go, when's the first time you remember trying to please a man and it didn't work? As she started to cry, she remembered her dad was basically non-existent and maybe a little verbally abusive. She tried to win her dad over, but couldn't. So even as a middle-aged woman in a relationship, she's a 10-year-old girl. That's the baggage she brings in. So if you were lucky enough to marry, because this woman has so many amazing qualities, but her relationships are driven by her baggage. So when any guy she meets, if there is a number 3, if he does anything that looks like 1 or 2, he will be judged on that account. And that's how her marriages are shaped. So we'll talk about it in a few moments. Well, before I do, let me tell you my baggage I brought into my marriage. So I and for those of you who know me, I know, take a breath, I know you're shocked that I actually brought baggage in. So yes, take a deep breath. I'm going to explain that I lived under the idea that I was not allowed to fail. So I figured out a great formula. If you don't try, you don't fail. Now, my wife saw that as a lack of motivation, sometimes laziness, but I just didn't want to fail. That was my baggage. So when I knew I had to do something out of my comfort zone that I could fail, I didn't want to fail in front of her. So that began to shape our marriage. Her baggage she brings in, and she gives me permission to use this. She didn't give me permission on a podcast, but I'm just taking the blanket grandfather here. I've been married for 41 years. She had some abuse in her background, and I realized early in the marriage, way before I had a pastoral degree or a counseling degree, that a lot of her hurts and angers that were given towards me were not me. Again, if I would have known what I know now then, I wouldn't have been bothered by half the things she did. I would have realized this is her baggage. And now, instead of being offended by this, I'm being judged by someone else's mistakes that they laid on you. I could look as an opportunity as a husband to meet those needs that she needs met. So I think it's important if you are married or getting ready to get married, first of all, then you really need to do a baggage check. If you are married and didn't have premarital counseling or they didn't cover this, I think it's important to sit and bring in to play the baggage and don't pick your spouse's baggage. They already know what it is. You talk about yours. And in a moment, I'm going to talk about how to live a 3D marriage, which is understanding what I do with baggage. So, Jeremy, here's confession time again. We seem to have that every other podcast or so. What baggage do you think you brought in to the marriage?
I think one of the biggest ones for me, we talked about how I was 28 when I got married, so I had all these preconceived notions about how life works and these expectations and of how things would happen. But I think the biggest thing is when you're 28 and you've been single for 28 years, living on your own for basically 9-10 years, you get set in your ways and you get selfish about how you do things, and you want instant, like, when you're single, you can go out and buy anything you want. You can go out and, as long as you have the means, you can go out and buy what you want. You can do things when you want. You don't have to check in with people. You don't have to see if it's okay to do, or if you're okay to be out this late or whatever, whereas when you're married, you now have a person who you're collaborating with, like we talked in the last podcast.
And there's some accountability there.
Yeah, there's accountability, there's collaboration. You don't just leave and you come and go as you please anymore. You have to, dial that down to where you basically check and you make sure that this person is okay with what you're doing, whether it be coming and going or buying or, whatever. And you make sure that they are part of the decision rather than you just making those decisions on your own.
Correct.
Which is very hard. I remember I had a lot of cars for about 10 years. Like, I would buy cars every other year or so, and
cell phones
and got into a lot of debt that way.
Yeah.
And so I was at the dealership one time and I realized, hey, I probably need to check with my wife to see if she wants to buy a new car, and that's kind of when it hit me.
I drive home in a new car.
Yeah, that's kind of when it hit me is, oh, hey,
yeah,
you know what? I mean, I probably need to have her be part of this process. Now, later on, the expectation is she doesn't want to be a part of that process. And so, once we decide to buy a new car together,
full steam ahead.
It's all me.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of that communication there.
But that's the negotiation you worked out.
Yes.
Between the two of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's because she understands your baggage. See, again, that baggage check is really important. And so I just mentioned a minute ago, what's only fair? I explained my baggage and my wife's baggage, so I'm going to get you in trouble here. What kind of baggage do you think your wife brought in?
You are going to get me in trouble.
This is true.
I mean,
I'm not going down by myself.
Well,
so
I'm going to have to ask for permission when I get home tonight, but I think...
this may not make the air, but go ahead anyway.
We may cut this. I think part of the baggage that she brought to the relationship and to the marriage was, she was 19 when we got married. I was 28. Do the math.
Yeah.
I am 8 years older than her. No, sorry, she was 20 when we got married.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So 8 years difference. She didn't have a lot of experience in life, and doing things and in making decisions and with that, there's a naivety, is that how you say it?
Yeah. Yep.
To just everything in life. And so we had to walk through some of those things the hard way. I had to tell her, hey, when it came to schooling, you have to, I want you to make sure that this, and this are in place. So we, because we learned that at one point that something that she was told was not what actually happened. Yeah. And so the next time we had that conversation that, hey, we need to make sure that this stuff's in place and not just take for granted what someone says, so that it doesn't cost us more money to go to school and things like that. But she had lived under her parents' roof for the 20 years that she was there too. And that was kind of a baggage too, in that, she hadn't had to pay rent before. She hadn't had to, she had bills, but not the amount of bills that come with, living on your own necessarily. So I took care of some of that, and I knew that baggage coming in. So I kind of steered myself towards that's my responsibility and what I need to keep up with. And kind of have her be part of that conversation, but I'm the one who's mainly taking care of those points.
Yeah. And back to our prior podcast a week ago when we talked about expectations, sometimes the baggage you bring in are expectations.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you live I do a little workshop called Living a 3D Life. 3D, I've never had a 3D TV, but they say it's clearer, more focused. It gives you a really true picture. So how to have a marriage like that is, the first D is just discover what your baggage is. The funny thing is sometimes we're afraid to tell our spouse what our baggage is, but the truth is they already know. They just really like to know that we know. It bothers them that they think we don't know that this is an issue. And then discovery is one thing, but just owning it. So when you sit with your partner, your spouse, and if you haven't done this is really a therapeutic, kind of a cathartic marriage exercise. It's good that they realize you know it, and now you're explaining to them, and it takes a little of the pressure off. You're not just a nag, because that's how you look at it. Like if you're used to having your own way 28 years, and now you have accountability, it seems like a nag. Well, it's not a nag. Mm-hmm. It's the baggage you brought in from having no accountability, just free will to do whatever you want. So the first one is to discover it and to own it, and then you share that with your partner. And don't be upset if they find a couple more evidences of how that's true. But again, if we really want a marriage to be strong, then you have to be just totally honest. So I want to know where I'm failing. I want to know where I have baggage. And sometimes, remember those little Chinese toys you could buy at the dollar store where it would be a box, and inside the box was a box. Inside that box, you have like a micro box. Well, sometimes that's what our baggage is. We show, here's my baggage, but what you didn't show is inside there's 9 more boxes, because it takes shape in many different ways. The second one is deconstruct. So once you see them and you take ownership of them, you deconstruct them. You got to get rid of old thoughts, old patterns, negative thoughts. And by the way, you don't beat yourself up. These really do come naturally. These belief systems every time you have a baggage, it forms a belief system that may or may not be true. And when you own it, don't beat yourself up. It comes really in a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's the environment. Most of our baggage comes from what we saw modeled growing up. So you can't take full responsibility for that. You didn't have to propagate it. You didn't have to carry it on to the next generation, but you earned that. You came by that naturally. So don't beat yourself up. Some of it's just the environment. We talked about that in the past episode, where how you grew up and where you grew up, there were certain sets of rules that become baggage. Back in my day, I grew up in California, much more progressive. And my wife grew up in the heart of mid-America, where people still wore Sunday best to dinner. You still ate at the table every week. And those were her expectations. And so when I want to watch the game on Sunday with my sub sandwich and a plate on the couch, I kept thinking, this is not fight-worthy. Why are we fighting about this? Well, we didn't discuss kind of our baggage, our environmental baggage. She was told, this is how you do a family. I'm told, this is how to do a family. And so these predispositions we bring in, it causes trouble. You discover it, you own it, you deconstruct all the bad ones, and then if you don't rebuild it, you have a void. So you start to develop new patterns and new beliefs, and that's the cool part. Now I'm asking my spouse to help me in developing new patterns and developing new thoughts, and that brings two people together when you do that.
Well, that's for us, it is kind of similar. Is Katie's family is very East Coast kind of,
yeah,
has some proper things to it. I won't, it's whereas my family was a little bit laid back, I guess. Mm-hmm. We started off a little bit more East Coast because we were on the East Coast when I was, early in my years, but we kind of became a more laid back family, and so there was a difference there when we got married, is because it was there's certain expectations from her because of that upbringing that one of the biggest things is for me, and maybe I'm just weird like this, maybe it's my upbringing, I don't know.
Yeah.
But family gatherings were kind of optional, whereas for her, family gatherings were kind of expected to be there.
Yeah, mandatory almost.
Yeah, mandatory. Mm-hmm. And so it took me a while to get that, because her, she was hurt by the fact that I wasn't going to these things, and she was having to tell her family that I was working and doing these things. And I didn't see that as, any kind of issue.
No, but what was her story hooked to that? You didn't, so it was disrespectful. You don't like her family. There's all kinds of things.
There's all kinds of things that could be thought. And
Correct.
but her thing was trying to explain to her family where I was and why I wasn't there.
Yeah.
And so that was hurtful to her, that I was constantly bailing on family stuff. Yeah. And it took me a while to learn and to change, because I optional family gatherings was my deal. And so I opted not to go a lot of times, you know? And so eventually we came to this common ground on it.
Correct. Yep.
Where, okay, hey, I need to come, but at the same time, you know what, if something else is I need to be doing something else for work or whatnot, then we'll have that conversation ahead of time.
You came to a mutual agreement.
Yeah, and so we figured out a way to make it work for both of us, and it was a little bit of compromise, a little bit of compromise on my end, and a little bit of compromise on her end to get to the point where we now know how to function in that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what you say when you're saying you're building up, is you tear down the walls and the ways that you used to do it, and you figure out that way to do it together, and that's what you build on.
It's a new way. Yeah.
It's a new way, and that to me, again, I was talking to a buddy a couple weeks ago, and that was my primary thing to him, is she's going to have her way of doing dishes and doing laundry and cleaning and family functions and what her expectations are, and you have all of your stuff that this is the way that you do things. This is how you use your free time. This is how you do dishes, laundry, all that stuff, and you're going to have to break those things down and actually come to a compromise. I think the word you used was negotiation, but
it is
a compromise, and learn how you guys are doing that together and what that expectation is for both of you when you talk about those.
And it's
different
best
components.
to do that prior to the marriage than after.
Yes. It's hard. And that's why I say, I don't know if it was this podcast or the last one, but I said, my expectation was everything works together.
Yeah.
And that these romantic comedies kind of made me think everything was good and everything just kind of fit like a glove, and it's a lot of work. And that's why it's a lot of work, is because if you do it after the fact, even if you do it before the fact, it's a lot of work to get through those and to figure that out. And some of it you can't do until after, and some of it you can do it prior. You just have to figure out, what those pieces of baggage are and identify them, like you said, and then, tear those things down and build up a new way of doing things.
And you said that in the last podcast when we were talking about, and I put you on the spot and asked you a question, and you defined it as a partnership. And partnership conveys the idea that two people are working together for a common goal. That makes you close. That makes you strong. So it's okay to have baggage. It's okay to discover it and own it. It's beneficial to tear it apart, and then you allow your spouse to help. And the good news for you out there listening is that you can change. So just because you had that baggage doesn't mean that's a curse forever. I'm much like you. My family was a little more cold. Not a whole lot of I love yous floating around. We weren't really a touchy, huggy family at all. And so when I met my wife and her family, every time I went over, they're all hugging me. And I'm thinking, it's a family of pedophiles. They can't keep their hands off me, And I really didn't like it, and I shied away probably. But I'll tell you, it wasn't too long when I started to get into that family that it changed. And now I'm that way. I'm a huggy, touchy, I love you kind of guy. I like the positive change that's happened from here. So, and baggage, and I want to clarify, the term baggage doesn't always mean something horrific or traumatic or big. Sometimes it's just habits and patterns too that are bad. It doesn't have to be bad. It doesn't have to be right or wrong. It just is.
Well, and the thing is, you can change, but you have to be willing to change.
Yeah.
You can't expect the person, the partner, the spouse to do all the changing. It's sometimes, most time it should be 50-50, but sometimes you have to come 70% of the way, and the other person has to come 30% of the way.
Yeah.
And you have to be willing to come that 70% and sometimes come that 30%.
But if you're keeping track of percentage, then you're off base anyway. It
Exactly.
doesn't. At the end of the day, if our goal is to become closer and work in the same direction, it really shouldn't matter what percentage is. But people do that. I did my 50. Where are you? Well, sometimes I need to give 70.
Yeah, and you need to be okay with that. And you need to be okay with what's the term? Losing the fight, I guess.
Yeah.
Losing the compromise. It's not a win or a loss. when you compromise, when you tear down the old system and build up a new system together, it's a win for both of you.
Absolutely, yeah.
And knowing those expectations and knowing what it's supposed to look like to both of you helps you in the long run be able to meet each other's expectations and communicate better.
On my personal Instagram account, I always just use it to post, positive things and memes that may inspire. And I posted this one a few weeks ago that said, the need to always look back diminishes when you realize the present is all you can really resolve. So back to your point, it's like, is this a hill to die on? My predisposition, my baggage, I can look back and see it, but it's really not a hill to die, because all I can control is what I want or need in the moment, and that is that I have a stronger marriage, and that I get to meet her needs while she meets my needs. What a great relationship.
Well, and that goes back to what love. We said love is love is not about what you get out of it.
Correct.
It's what what you can give, and what you get out of it is a byproduct of love. It's not the thing that compels you to love.
And if you're looking at like formulas that can predict the success of a marriage, there's really three that can predict success or failure, and one of them is each person meets their own needs. Those I do what I want, she does what she wants, and we live happily ever after. It doesn't really happen that way. Those don't usually make it. The second one they call horse trading, whoring, bartering, which psychologists use whoring term, isn't it? Which is interesting, which just says, I'll do something for you if you do it for me.
I'll scratch your back if you're scratching.
Yes. So, I'll let you do this. I'll let you have that one bag if you let me have my bag. And those can work, but it's a long, hard journey. The marriages that really are successful make it are the ones that say, I'll meet your needs, you meet my needs, then both of our needs are getting met, and I'm doing it because I love the other person. Those are the ones that are usually successful. Once I look at it this way, I tend to always be positive, I understand, but when I meet a guy or a girl who's married to a spouse that has a lot of baggage, I always try to encourage them and say, you have the opportunity to break the curse of that baggage and be the kind of person they really need, because their baggage is just a protection thing, and if you have the opportunity to be her hero, you have the opportunity to be his hero, you have an opportunity to debunk the lies of that baggage, and that's a great challenge. And I think that really helps in understanding, because baggage can be hurtful if I let you hurt me. But if I understand what it is, again, I coined a term just for me, but I tell my clients when I work them on is IRG, instant response of grace. So when her baggage comes out and I give an instant response of grace, I've reduced the chance that we're going to fight about it. I give them grace, which is grace, love, and forgiveness are the three amazing things that the New Testament gives us. I told that to a woman the other day, and she goes, but if I give him grace, he doesn't deserve it. I go, by its definition, that's what grace means. And so I like to say now, being a little older, being a little wiser, doing this for a lot of years, when I meet someone with baggage, I've told this to men whose wife carry a lot of baggage based on things that happened to them, they are really very easy to love once you understand their baggage. You just meet those needs that baggage screams out for. You really get their playbook on how to have a good marriage. Or you can walk around being a grump, saying they're a nag. They're jealous. To your point, Jeremy. It's about a choice. It's about a choice.
So we've identified, the fact that we need to deal with our baggage, and that's the way to move forward. Mm-hmm. So I guess the question is how do we tangibly do that? What can we do to break the bondage that baggage gives us?
Well, you have to address it and own it. And you never really work through baggage on your own. Honestly, it always comes in relationship, either a relationship with a counselor, a relationship with a friend, a relationship with an organization that's helping you work through it, or in relationship to a spouse. I've seen a lot of guys really get some real victory over the baggage that pornography has brought them, but I can't remember too many that found victory without that supporting spouse that helped them through that. So I think if you're trying this at home as a takeaway, we like to give you something tangible to take away. Maybe you sit with your spouse, your partner, the person you love and journeying through life with, and identify 3 pieces of baggage you know you have and own it. And then maybe ask the question, this will be a hard question, but how has my baggage affected you? And as they respond, as you listen and not respond, and then you ask forgiveness for how that baggage affected them, and then you ask for help in deconstructing and building a new one. And more times than not, your partner is more than happy, A, that you recognize it, and B, that you want to make a move. I don't know how many wives I've heard say, I'm not expecting perfection from my husband. I'm even happy with baby steps. If you can get him to throw a bone my way, I'll be happy. So I think doing that, if you want to try that at home, sit together with a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, whatever your preference is, and say, I've identified these 3 predominant pieces of baggage. How have they affected you? Have they hurt you? How do you think they've shaped our marriage?
And so that's what we hope all of us can do. I sit here and I think, okay, maybe I need to do that too. But
no, you do.
Yeah, I definitely do.
Yeah.
So I would say if you could do that, that will help you grow in yourself and in your relationship. And so we hope that you can do that. We hope that you feel like you're in a safe spot to do that, and that that you'll get a good response when you do that. And we'd love to hear from you if you have questions about how to do that better, or how to even present that a little bit.
And to that point, Jeremy, if you find that either one of your baggage is deeper, darker, and a greater hold on you, that both of you have a hard time, please reach out. Let us know, and we can send you to someone who can help you work through that. If you think that this piece of baggage is so monumental that we don't even know how to wrap our brain around it, please contact us. Everything that you send us is confidential, but we will love to talk with you and direct you into a place where you could really get some help.
Yeah. And so the places you can contact us are on our Facebook at facebook.com, RP Podcast. I do suggest not putting anything of personal nature on the feed itself, but direct messaging us at any of these places.
Correct.
Also, Instagram, we are at RP Podcast. On Twitter at the RP Podcast. And on our website as well at www.rppodcast.com. We hope that you can take something away from what we just talked about, that you enjoyed it, and that hopefully it brings you some peace and breaks the bondage that baggage sometimes brings. Until next time, we hope you have a great one, and we will talk to you later.